Anytime you drain or replace the coolant in an engine, you run the risk of trapping air inside the cooling system, and that's a big problem. Air pockets can cause hot spots, poor heater performance, and even engine damage if the temperature spikes where the coolant is not circulating. I've seen cars come in overheating right after a coolant service just because the system was not purged properly. That's where this tool comes in. It's called a cooling system evacuation and refill tool, and it uses shop air to create a vacuum inside the cooling system. When the air is pulled out, it draws new coolant back in with zero air and zero guesswork. Today I want to show you exactly how it works and why every professional shop uses one of these. How you can use it to get the perfect coolant fill every single time. I thought it was important we made this video for you guys to teach you how to properly get the air out of your cooling system. I know a lot of you are out there, you're replacing your own radiators and thermostats, hoses and all those things. But I see so many cars come in the garage that have an air pocket in the cooling system because it didn't get bled properly. It's a really important part of the process when you're replacing anything in the cooling system or just draining and filling your coolant altogether. So I want to talk about a couple of the tools that we can use in the garage, and I even brought something that we used to use in the past. This particular tool here is what we used for years in the industry, and it just sits on top of the radiator. It's got some adapters on it, something like this. You put this, whatever adapter fits inside the radiator, and then put the cap on it, and then you just cap it off, and then you can stick this in here. And what this is really doing for us, or what has done for us in the past, and I still use this occasionally, it allows the air to rise to the highest part of the cooling system. So normally the cap is pretty close to the highest, but this gives us an extra 6 or 8 inches maybe above the cap. If we fill this up with coolant, now the air wants to push its way all the way to the very top. It'll bubble out of here. We can wait for the thermostat to open usually, let this draw some more coolant in. There's a little tool here we can use to plug it up, cap it off, and then we can just take this off completely and then cap up our system, remove the cap and cap it up. So this was a great tool for many years, but it came with a lot of problems on certain cars, okay? So, some of you guys, I think some other videos we've done, you mentioned the Nissan VQ30 engines. Some of those V6 engines on the Nissans were problematic. They even put a little bleeder screw in the back heater hose so that you could bleed the air out of it. Well, these tools that we have now kind of eliminate the need for that. We're able to actually suck all the air out of the cooling system and then refill it without any air entering the system. So it's really a great tool for that. I can tell you years ago we had problems with cars like the old body styles on the Corvettes from the 70s. The radiator was in slanted, and you had to do funny things, jack up the car in order to get it tilted to the right angle so the air would work its way to the top. And we run into all kinds of scenarios and all kinds of cars where getting the air out is challenging. So this is kind of process now that's available to us is much better, it's much more efficient, and we rarely run into problems with it. It really does a great job of evacuating all the air from the cooling system, which means to you a couple of things. One, you're not going to have a problem with it after you've serviced it, and two, it's a much cleaner and neater process. So you really don't even make a mess with this. So we're going to walk over to this Subaru we got here today, demonstrate what we've done to it, and show you how to use this tool efficiently. In the previous section here, I just showed you a few of the tools that we've used in the past to fill cooling systems, and I have one here that I use regularly. Unfortunately for this video, I've noticed the gauge is not working. It seems like it's broken. So grabbed a different tool here. This one's made by Matco Tools, and this is pretty much the same type of tool, just maybe it functions a hair differently. So I'm going to demonstrate on here because I want you to be able to see a functioning vacuum gauge while we do this process on here. So let's describe what we're going to do. We're going to take the one end and put it in the coolant bucket. This is the one with the valve here that's going to draw the coolant into the cooling system. We have another valve here that's on the air hose, and all that's going to do is siphon out the air that's in the cooling system. So the one that's connected to the air hose is for your airflow, and the other one is for coolant flow. Okay, so just make sure you got those right. We're going to find the cone that best fits this car. So some of them there's all kinds of adapters that come with these tools, but the most common one to use is just a tapered cone. This one has 3 different sizes built into it. My snap-on tool has got one size there, but just tapers all the way down. Doesn't really matter. As long as you've got a tight seal on it, that's all that we really care about. So I'll go ahead and tighten this back on. Get that snugged up. And then we're going to insert this here into the neck of this remote reservoir. Now you notice this car has got 2 systems here. It's got a cap over there and a cap over here. We're going to leave the cap on that one and just use the one on the reservoir so we can take the air of the entire system, not just the radiator portion. They're all connected anyway through a hose, but this is usually the best place to finish up your job and top up your coolant, okay? This is the highest spot on the car. Next thing we're going to do is get a little loud here, but we're going to hook up the air hose. And then we're going to start the vacuum process. Now, outside of this little hose, there's going to be some air that comes out. If we draw any coolant in here by accident, it's going to come spitting out the air side. And we don't want that to happen if we can avoid it. But let's go ahead and start the air process. Our gauge right now is reading near 0. And that's what we'd expect. And we want to pull this into a vacuum as deep as we can get into a vacuum. If we can get 20 inches, great. If we get 25 inches, that's even better. The main thing is that we get all the air out of the system, and we get it to the point where these radiator hoses will collapse. They'll actually squish down flat. Okay, so that's what we're going for right now. So I'm going to take this and just tuck it out of the way, point it towards the ground a little, and then I'm going to open up this valve and we're going to let it pull a vacuum on the system. And hopefully you'll see here on camera that this upper radiator hose is going to squish down tight. It's going to completely collapse under the vacuum. Oh, okay, one more thing I wanted to mention here. That's why I have this tool out. Sometimes the overflow hose will draw some of this air we're trying to siphon out through it. So just find the overflow hose to the bottle and pinch that off, and that'll stop you from drawing any air in through the overflow. We'll put that on here. Okay, let's try that again. You can see the upper hose now is already starting to squish itself flat. So at this point, my gauge has reached past 20 inches of vacuum. That's pretty good. Our hose has been collapsed. I'm going to turn the air off. Okay. And I usually like to just kind of hold it here and make sure it's not bleeding down. Okay. Because if it bleeds down right away, you've got a big leak somewhere that you need to seal up. Maybe you forgot to tighten the petcock on the radiator after you put it in, or drain the coolant, one of those things. So just make sure you're holding some vacuum. That's what the gauge is there for. First, we want to make sure we get a complete vacuum, a complete evacuate of the system, and then we want to make sure that it holds some pressure here. So as long as it's doing that, let me rephrase that, we want to make sure it's holding some vacuum. Okay, so as long as we're able to hold some vacuum there with some consistency, you're okay to refill it. Okay, if you get it to bleed down quickly, you've got a problem. So the next thing I want to do, I want to stick this hose in my new coolant all the way to the bottom, because I don't want to draw any air up. It's going to be sucking from the bottom. And then I want to purge a little bit of this air that's in my hose, so the coolant stops right about here. So I'm just going to open this valve a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to try to get it to right there so that there's no air in the cooling system. This will stop the air, that little amount of air that's in the hose, from creating an air pocket later in the system. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on, and we're going to let this work a little bit longer now that I've purged my hose, and then we'll be ready to fill. Okay, so about 30 seconds or so is usually plenty, maybe a little longer if you need to, if you really want to let it purge. But we've let those hoses collapse. It's not the only hose that's collapsed, the lower one as well. And that should be plenty for us to go ahead and refill this cooling system. We're holding a good vacuum here on the gauge, staying nice and steady. I'm applying a little pressure because I don't have the best seal inside that little conical tapered cone that's sitting inside the reservoir. So I'm trying to hold that steady so that way it doesn't bleed off any air, so you guys can see it's holding there. So the next step for us now, once we've got a vacuum that's holding and the hoses have been collapsed and we let it evacuate for a little period of time here, is we can just go ahead and open this valve up. Okay, and that's going to do is going to draw the air into the cooling system. Now what we want to do, we got to watch this bucket, and that's why I use these clear buckets for you. I want you to be able to see the coolant drawing down, and we want to make sure that we don't suck any air up in here. So when we get close to the bottom, we'll go ahead and switch buckets. So I like to stop a little short of the bottom there and then just switch buckets on here. We'll go ahead and put that right in the next one. And then open it back up. Now you'll know when you've got the system full when there's no longer a vacuum in there. So when your gauge is reading 0 again or down to the bottom, and when your bucket stops drawing, that's your indication that your system should be full. And it looks like we're right about there. So I'm going to turn that off. And then I'm going to run this vacuum again for just a couple of seconds. In case there's any air left, I'm going to let it spit in here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on. You see it was just drawing a little bit of coolant there out of the system, and then I'm going to fill just a tiny bit more. And that's all we can get in there. So when you're done, you can disconnect everything. And your cooling system should be full. We open this back up, it'll allow that coolant to drain back into your bucket. And then usually you're good to just cap the system up. Now, one more thing I'll usually do, I'll just start it up and let it run for 30, 60 seconds. We shouldn't have to wait for the thermostat now to open. And in the old days, we would have to use that funnel. We'd stick it in there, like I told you earlier, and we wait for the bubbles to come out of the funnel, wait for it to draw some more coolant down once the thermostat open. This system allows us to not have to wait for that, not have to deal with hot coolant. So let's go ahead and remove our other tools here, and we're gonna run it for a few seconds and cap it up. And the last thing you want to do is just check your overflow reservoir, make sure it's between the minimum and maximum. It's going to add a splash here. So I hope you can see there how simple and straightforward this process is. It's a little confusing maybe with the two hoses without seeing that up close, but you'll figure it out as soon as you get yourself a kit and you'll understand the process. The main thing you want to understand is that we're trying to remove all the air from the cooling system. So we want to make sure we don't bring any back in when we go to refill. I think that's an important step there if you can do that. And then at the end, I added a little extra step where I just draw some air out the top again once everything is full. And I just want to make sure that if there's any other air bubbles that get injected in there, we bring them to the top, to the surface. So it'll draw those air bubbles out through the coolant. Saw it draw a little bit of coolant back too, and that's probably why we had to top a little bit up. So make sure you're topping your reservoir and you're topping up your system once you're done, but you should have all the air out of the system, and you should be ready to cap it up and give it a road test. Okay, make sure your thermostat opens, your upper and lower hoses are both going to be warm. We don't want to have that lower hose still cold. That means your thermostat hasn't opened yet. So I want to talk a second about these tools now. Hopefully you understand that process. If you guys have any questions, you're welcome to hit me up in the comments there, and I'll try to walk you through anything if I didn't explain it enough for you on here. But these tools here, obviously come in different shapes and sizes and brands. You don't need a Matco or a Snap-on tool. They work great, yes. I love them, yes. But there are other tools like this one here. This tool we haven't used a lot with this evacuator on here, because we have the other tools, but we do use it with this cooling system pressure tester. And I wanted to kind of show that to you real quick, because this Subaru that you saw here, we had to put a radiator in. The radiator was leaking around the top tank, around the seam. And sometimes the only way to find that is to pressurize the system. So I figured a little bonus footage for you here, get you guys thinking about how are you going to identify if you have a problem on your cooling system. And one of the ways we need to do that is to pressure test it. This kit is great for that. All of these adapters that you see here in front of me are all designed to work with the pressure test portion of this kit and not with the coolant evacuator portion, okay? So the coolant evacuator is really gonna be just this, similar to what you saw on that Matco tool, and another conical type fitting that can fit in the bottom, okay? And that's really all you need for the evacuation portion for the most part, okay? And this hose is here. But the rest of the stuff you see in this kit is really here to pressure test the cooling system. We'll take this little pumper out. We'll put the adapter on the radiator cap or at the reservoir, and then we can just pump this thing up until we get about 15 psi, whatever your radiator cap says it should hold. You can pump that up and see if it holds pressure. If it doesn't, you should see the gauge bleed down and you should find something leaking somewhere. So I think it's important if you're doing cooling system work, especially if you're trying to diagnose a leak, to have a kit like this, okay? Now they make these tools separate as well, but these kits are pretty inexpensive online. I think we'll try to find something for you, something similar to this one that's on Amazon, and put a link to it. So if you're interested in buying a kit that has everything in it, comprehensive wise, then that'll suit your needs, okay? I hope you're finding this information helpful, valuable, useful, all those things. Please share this with anybody you know you think can use the information. It really helps our channel grow. We want to remind you to like the channel, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell for notifications. You know, we make new content for you at least once a week. So every Thursday for sure, we're trying to release a video for you. And we're going to try to supplement that with a few extra videos here and there, but I want to guarantee you that we're getting out one a week. And we'd like to hear from you as well. You know, in addition to sharing the content, it helps when you leave us some comments. Let us know what you like to see. Let us know what you may or may not have liked about the video. We're doing our best for you to bring you some solid content. And we want to make sure that this information is really working for you. So just give us a little bit of feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Share your stories with us. If there's anything that you've done that you want to share or you had problems with, we'd love to hear about it. We try to read all the comments. We try to comment on as many as we can as well, give you some personalized content feedback here. So go ahead and go drop us a note somewhere. Thank you for following. We got plenty of more great content. Check out another one here, and we'll see you in the next video.